Welcome back. 9:38. You know, earlier this week, we got a little bit of an uplift for common sense conservatives when we heard that our governor, Ned Lamont, pulled the regulation that would ban the sale of gasoline, diesel-powered vehicles in 2035. And it was a committee vote that's going to take place, and he pulled it because, well, oddly enough, there were common sense Democrats that didn't think it was a good idea. And so we're excited about that. And there's a lot of maybe some other pressure mounting elsewhere in the country. Joining us now, State Senator Rob Sampson. Rob, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Pastor. How are you? And
right.
Amen, by the way.
Thank you.
I didn't get to text you, but amen for sure. I enjoy that every morning.
Were you obviously happy, I guess, right? I mean, surprised that there was more Democrat fallout on that committee than we originally thought?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of public pressure out there. I think that on its face, this issue doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, we've got, a dozen bullet points we can, state very easily about why this is not a workable policy. Mm-hmm. And the people in favor of it, they have feelings. That's what they have, I mean, and besides that, I mean, the larger issue is not even about the environment or EVs or anything like that. This is about the legislative process. Are we going to let the regulatory bureaucracy decide, what the laws are in the state of Connecticut, or are we going to let the people decide? And it's also about, the Democrats and how they've become an authoritarian, type of policy-making machine. They don't respect the freedom of individuals to choose.
Yeah. But I mean, it's so crazy because everywhere you look, almost daily, I'm looking at an article now that talks about the fact that automakers rethink EV investments. And Ford had a $12 billion EV plan, and they've postponed it indefinitely. They pulled the plug. Others are doing likewise. Here's from Consumer Reports. Electric vehicles have 80% more problems than gas-powered vehicles. Forget about the cost. Cost is much, much higher. And then you had, just earlier this week, 3,000 dealers signed a letter to President Biden saying this is lunacy. This can't work. But here's what I think might have happened. I'm so happy about this. Late yesterday, I got a report that the top leader in the Senate for New Jersey, a Democrat, Paul Sarlo, spoke out against the fact that Governor Phil Murphy also pushed through a ban with no plan for 2035 in New Jersey. And he says it's not going to happen. He says, I know, this quote from the article, I know everybody in the room understands the need to invest in green energy and move in that direction. I don't think anybody here is opposed to that. I am, but whatever. He said, however, to be practical, 2035 is not happening. Dead, done, over. So I think our governor unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, gave this guy some cover that he felt confident to speak out about it and say, you know what, we're not doing it in New Jersey either. So thank you, Governor Lamont. We slowed up Connecticut and New Jersey within 2 days of each other. It's amazing.
Right. Oh, yeah. And certainly the car dealers have. People can find that letter, by the way. It's on a website. It's called evvoiceofthecustomer.com.
Yeah.
And it's really a great letter. I mean, these car dealers, and there's actually almost 4,000.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Folks on, and they have a map of the entire country, and they show how many. I think there's 40-something from Connecticut. But even California, 350 car dealers there,
Sure.
All across the country, every state. And they lay it out, which is that, the technology's not there. I mean, it's coming along. Electric vehicles do have a place. There are consumers that want them. And I think what happened is you had people that were early adopters who really liked the idea of an electric vehicle, and they bought them.
And now nobody's buying them, though. Dealer inventories are piling up with EV cars. So the people that really thought EV cars were a great idea, to your point, the early adopters, they bought them. They represent about 0.5% of all the car sales in the United States.
Exactly.
So
and
now
the question is simply about whether the government, whether it's the president himself or these, blue state governors, are going to try and impose their will on the people that they represent in their communities. I was reading the article about that Democrat state senator in New Jersey, and the thing that was more fascinating to me than even his comments were the comments of the governor. Who is really pushing this thing. I mean, even more adamantly than Lamont was.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're so hypocritical. I mean, he comes and says, now let me make one thing perfectly clear at the outset before the right-wing meme makers go off. No one's coming for your gas stove. No one is walking to anyone's kitchen. No one is going to be forced to do anything in any way. And, of course, that's a lie. I mean, if they go forward with this, they are, in fact, forcing people to, choose a certain type of vehicle versus one that they might otherwise do. That's what they're about. They're about control and force. And that's what this issue really represents to me, more even than the debate over the environment.
Well, I mean, you're in trouble when Eversource. I mean, the only people that stand to win on this one is electric companies, right? But Eversource is saying we can't do it now. We can't do it now. We've got all these upgrades we have to do. I heard that I don't recall what the number was, but it was a staggering number. They said if we were able to upgrade all of the grid in the United States of America, all the substations, if we were able to produce the power we need, which so many people say there's no way we'll even have the technology to produce that much extra electricity by 2035. The numbers was in the hundreds of billions of dollars to upgrade the grid nationally. So where's that money coming from?
Yeah, no, I think the numbers in Connecticut were in the multiple billions of dollars, $2 or $3 billion, just to have a introductory level of charging stations created in the state. And, it's so funny because I think the governor is leaning a little bit on money coming from the federal government that is helping push this policy decision in this direction. But it's not even that much money. The federal bill was huge. I mean, over $1 trillion, $1.25 trillion in the infrastructure plan. But Connecticut's getting $53 million or something like that, allegedly to produce electric vehicles. So we're getting 0.5%, and then we're supposed to put in another 10 or 15, million as a state to start building electric vehicle chargers. But that's only to build them within a couple of miles of major roadways. So that's not covering, eastern Connecticut at all. Or northwest Connecticut. I mean, we're so far from being able to do this. And as you pointed out, Pastor, the grid can't handle it, particularly in Connecticut. Most of our electricity comes from natural gas. And even that, we have a tough time because we get our natural gas from Canada and Pennsylvania via a pipeline, right, which doesn't even have the capacity to feed our needs now. Mm-hmm. You had Governor Malloy pushing people off of oil heat into gas heat during his reign. And that has put a strain on the grid. And, of course, those gas heat customers have to be a priority. So the gas goes to them first before it even goes to the electric plant. I don't know what these people are even thinking. I mean, there's no way to create electricity out of thin air. We need a plan, and that's where we should start. And that's what Senate Republicans are talking about, actually, is finding ways to create some relief on the grid and some relief for consumers who have to pay for electricity.
So, I mean, if you're trying to find out the condition of the grid and the capacity and what would be needed in an estimate to produce this enormous amount of extra power for cars and tractor trailers, and you would think you'd talk to the electric company, right? I guess they're probably the people that would have the best handle on it, right? The electric providers. So Eversource says that based on the increasing current demand that is all the time, we're always using more and more and more, just based on the current increase, to be ready for 2040, we would have to upgrade the grid, upgrade existing substations. We'd have to add 14 new substations, and the price tag would be 1.5 to 2.3 billion. That's low. The price tag ends up being 2.5 to 4.5 billion. That's just little tiny Connecticut.
Nerds. December can be tough on your wallet, so turn to NerdWallet.
Not Texas, that's not California. That's and it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling what they expect, and that's for 2040. So 2035 is not even a reasonable target, for crying out loud.
Right, and all this to perpetuate an idea that has no impact. I mean,
right.
We've talked about this before. I mean, until China and India, all these Democrats that want to force the people of Connecticut to drive electric cars, they ought to move to China and try and force their government to, limit their emissions. I mean, that's where the problem is. Changing this in Connecticut makes zero difference. I mean, it's not going to change anything. In fact, in the entire United States, we could go and adopt this policy at huge expense and great punishment to the citizens, and it would make no difference worldwide. And that's what we've really got to face here.
But see, and that's why I think there needs to be more critical thinking on this issue, because you hit the nail on the head. For what gain? If the United States tomorrow stopped using fossil fuel completely, China's not going to do it. Russia's not going to do it. India's not going to do it. We're not even going to make it. And scientists would agree. We're not even going to make it. Oh, we have to lead by example. And somehow we're going to coax the Russians and the Chinese and India to follow us, right? We have to hope. Well, hope's not a plan. So if none of this makes a difference and it's not even feasible, you have to ask, why are they pushing it so hard? I always say if something doesn't make common sense at first examination, it means there's an ulterior motive. And I think that's what we're not talking about. We're arguing the watts and voltage and all the parameters of things, but really, what's the true intention here? That's what we have to uncover, and that's what we have to tell people about.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the Democrats nationally are thinking on this issue. I mean, I think maybe they see it from a perspective that they have a constituency that is, very environmentally conscious, and they want to cater to them. And they feel like it's a good issue because they can paint anyone that opposes this move towards green energy in any way. And even though we're not opposed, I'm certainly not opposed to electric vehicles or technology. I want to see these things advance, but I also want to still be able to, to drive my classic car and my motorcycles, and I want my constituents to be able to exercise those freedoms too. Sure. And the thing they like about it is it's an issue where they get to paint the opposition as somehow not uncaring or unfeeling and not concerned about the planet. I mean, that's all baloney. And people that buy into that, I mean, they need to really, get a grip and sit back and actually think about the details here. There was so much misinformation coming out of the press conference that the Democrats held the other night. I mean, not only the price of the cars, but just the way they talk about this subject. I mean, we're talking about carbon dioxide, and they want to get people to think that this is some sort of toxic pollution. Carbon dioxide is just the air we breathe out. It's omnipresent. It's been there since the dawn of time. It's the thing that every plant needs to survive. And sure, it's gone up and down over time. There's a lot of dispute over the actual science of climate change and global warming. We won't get into that. But again, changing it in Connecticut is not going to change what happens worldwide.
Right. Well, and again, I had a laugh. There was a House subcommittee meeting, and they had a number of experts testifying, and one of I don't recall who it was, the congressperson that said, "Can you, any of you tell me how much carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere on any given day?" And they started throwing numbers out like 5%, 6%, 7%, and it was like 0.04%, not even a percentage point, right? And so you want us to believe that we're going to change, we're going to upend the economy, life, we're going to destroy industries, eliminate industries. We're going to force people to do stuff the majority of people don't want to do. And how is that going to help us? And you're like, they didn't even know. These are the experts didn't even know or didn't want to say what a tiny percentage carbon dioxide makes up of our atmosphere, and yet we're still supposed to jump through all these hoops. It doesn't make sense. Now, that's what I think. If you guys would do this, I say you guys being, I include myself as I'm a lifelong Republican, but if you guys would keep this up as a campaign issue and keep the pressure on, and identify Democrats that are pro-eliminate gas-powered cars by 2035. This is a winner. This is a winning issue, and you guys just need to keep pounding the drums.
I completely agree, Pastor. I was actually quite surprised that the Democrats came out so boldly in this press conference after a clear defeat. And they were taking a victory lap and suggesting that we're going to continue down this path. And I'm like, that's like the most foolish thing I ever heard. And I think you're right. I think voters in this state, I think they underestimate how much people care about their cars. People love their cars. And some people really love their cars. There are a lot of people. I mean, car shows in the state are a big thing. People collect things. People are, that's one of their most valued possessions. And to be interfering with the freedom of people to make that choice, it's really illustrative of the difference between Republican principles and, the current state of the Democrat Party. And I think it's good just from that standpoint to be able to illustrate that we're the party of freedom and technology and let the market solve this problem.
Yes.
Gas-powered vehicles have become unbelievably clean over time.
Yeah.
They don't even bother at the emission station to check what's coming out of the tailpipe, because it's so little. They actually just plug the car in, and it says, if it's running right, it's clean, on your way. And that will continue. And I think that we're going to see advances in, hybrids. We're going to see advances in gas-powered cars, too, that run cleaner and cleaner. In fact, we have biodiesel these days. There's so many different new technologies, and that's what needs to happen. We need to let these technologies work, let the industry compete and make, a better mousetrap. And we'll all be better off for that. It's when you have this top-down elimination of competition, a destruction of the marketplace, that I think we go backwards, not forwards.
Who's the Democrat co-chair of the committee, the regulation committee? What's her name?
Senator Cohen.
So somebody I don't know that it was she, but someone made a statement. It was I can't find the article now. They said, well, I think we should. Well, I think we should go. Well, the market's going that way, so we should go that way. Well, the market's not going that way. Nobody's selling EV cars. Dealers. I heard a guy interviewed last night. He's got hundreds of them sitting in his lot. He can't give them away. So I don't know. Democrats, it's like they make up a fantasy of something, and then they convince themselves that it's true, and then they talk about it as though it were assumed fact. Well, the market is not going that way. That's why Ford just paused its $12 billion EV plan. That's why General Motors has backed off on their EV development, because the market, if you want to follow the market's going gas, baby. They're not going electric. and I don't know why we just can't be honest about stuff.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's really frustrating listening to, all of those prominent Democrat lawmakers in the state of Connecticut trying to make it sound like they're working in a market-based solution. And they're not. They're using government force to deny personal choice. That's why I read, Governor Murphy from New Jersey's comments. Mm-hmm. I mean, the idea that he's saying no one is going to be forced to do anything in any way, that's a direct quote. While at the same time, you're saying that all vehicles, and I emphasize all, will be zero-emission vehicles. I mean, hello? I mean, those two sentences don't go together. And that was very much the message coming from the Democrats in the Connecticut press conference, too, which is that we don't care. We're going to impose our will.
Because they know better than we know, Rob. They know
Absolutely. Better
than we know. They're smarter than we are.
That is the difference between Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats want to tell you how to live, and Republicans want to protect your right to make those choices yourself.
I heard a Democrat we're talking about State Senator Rob Sampson. I heard a Democrat make the illustration, said, well, it's just like when cars were invented. People moved away from horses and buggies and bought cars. Well, and that's interesting because today, on this day in history, in 1913, Henry Ford started the automotive moving assembly line. But that's a bad comparison. People went from car, because the only way it would be right for this 2035 elimination is, okay, cars were invented. We didn't want you. It's not that you chose to go to the cars and leave your horses. No, we're going to force you to leave. So we're going to kill all the horses. So there is no choice. You can't have a horse buggy because the horses are all dead. So we're going to just force you to drive these new contraptions, these newfangled things called automobiles. That's what's going on here. They're not giving people a choice. They're saying you will submit, we will eliminate, we will kill the gas-powered cars, we will kill the horses, and you will have to drive electric powered car. And that's what I find so offensive about it.
Right. Well, the gas-powered automobile, Henry Ford, was advancing technology. He was progressing, by the way, to borrow the Democrats' favorite term. This is not progressive. I mean, electric vehicle technologies is behind gas-powered vehicle technology. There's a long way to go before they catch up. Those cars, they don't have the range. They are, less reliable. They're right fit for certain people, but generally it's people who are more affluent, people who have another gas-powered car to drive.
Sure.
When the electric vehicle
something
is
reliable
yeah,
that starts in the wintertime.
Like that.
Oh my gosh!
And the thing is, if electric vehicles reach the point where they are more, technologically advanced and more suitable and more desirable, guess what? People will buy them naturally.
Sure,
and that's what needs
the
to
market
happen in the
will
marketplace.
head that way, right? Not by Democrat edict. Hey, we got to go. Rob Sampson, thank you so much. Keep up the good work, my friend, and hopefully we'll talk soon about some good stuff.
It is my pleasure and privilege to join you. Thank you so much for having me, Patrick.
Have a great weekend.
Keep up the good
Thanks,
work.
Rob Sampson, everybody. Thank you. All right.